Hey, what up? 6.2 Step 1, Sample Paper 1 Essays. Our learning target students will be able to read exemplars of Paper 1 essays and explain why they are successful. Let's go. The question in your Cornell notes is, how can I use models to improve my own score? And let's take a look at that. How can we do that? Well, first of all, let me tell you about the samples that you're going to be reading. These come from former exams. There are 3 sample essays in the packet, and actually that's a bit misleading. There's actually 6 sample essays because each paper 1 includes 2 short essays. So there's 3 candidates, and they wrote 2 essays for each exam. And these are actual exam essays from Cooper students testing in 2021. We asked to have these sent back to us, and it actually cost some money to get them sent back to us, so it's cool that Robbinsdale said, hey, we will pay to give you these back. And so you can see I chose to print for you the highest scoring essays. These are the 3 highest scoring, and I'll give you the scores after you read them. They're scored by IB assessors, so all the comments in there are from someone else. They're not from me. And you can tell that they're not from this country when they spell things like color with a U. So I don't know what country the assessor was from, but it wasn't the U.S. Oh, and here was the point I was making before about money. The district paid for these exemplars to be sent back for us at a request from me because I wanted to see what are you guys writing and what is scoring the highest? Let's get it right from the assessor's mouths, so to speak. And so they were kind enough to pay for us to get these back this year. So let's take advantage of them. All right. There were 2 texts in 2021, as there always are for paper 1. And the first text is in your packet. And I don't know why it says in your packet twice, but it's 6.2 Step 2, and it's 2 pages long, and you'll see a 1 at the top of the page. And then you'll see the words, this is an extract from Prospero's Cell, a nonfiction work by Lawrence Durrell. And so that is IB saying what the extract is. And whatever they tell you in about the extract, you can use. They want you to use this. They want you to understand, okay, this is from the nonfiction genre or form, as they like to say, and kind of keep that in mind as you analyze the text and as you write about it. And then you'll see the divisions upon Greek ground is the title of this particular excerpt, and then each section is subtitled with numbers. 29.4.37 is the first, and then 5.5.37, etc. The IB provided 7 footnotes because this particular extract is about Greece and has some words that are specific to the location or maybe difficult to understand that they wouldn't expect you to understand, and so they've defined 7 words in footnotes, and those are on the 2nd page. The guiding question is also on the 2nd page, and it's, how does the author use descriptive language to create atmosphere? Text 2, what was it? Well, this one is also in your packet. It's the 3rd page in 6.2 Step 2. And we have these words from the IB to describe this text. Eleanor Farr Jean wrote this poem in memory of a close friend, E.T., Edward Thomas, who died in battle. And once again, you should take that information and use it in your analysis. And this is really important information because it's telling you that the poet herself, because you see her name at the bottom of the poem, knowing that, okay, that this is the poet who wrote this poem, is writing about something personal to her, but it is the content of the poem. And so normally when we separate the poet from the speaker, we don't have to do that in this poem because we are told explicitly that the poet is the speaker. The poet is writing this poem about her own personal life. If you aren't told that, you can't assume the poet is the speaker. But in this case, we're told that. So we can go ahead and write about the speaker as if she is the poet. It's titled Easter Monday, in memoriam, E.T. And the guiding question for text 2 is, how is imagery used to convey the poet's feelings? All right, so every year we get a subject report after students test, and a subject report is designed by examiners for teachers. And I read it every year, and I look over what the examiners said that the candidates who wrote about these texts did well, and then what they needed to work on. And so it's designed for teachers to read and for us to use to incorporate into our own lessons. But I'm going to give you some of their comments here, and I'll give you some more of the comments in the next video, which has the scores on the essays. So just keep in mind this comes from IB, and it's geared towards teachers, not towards you, so it might feel a little mean and nasty and very British. So here is what the examiners said in the subject report about the 2021 exam. First of all, they said candidates must either respond to the guiding question or provide an alternative. Remind them that any alternative must refer to a technical aspect. So I would suggest from this guidance that you answer the guiding question instead of trying to make up your own. It's not going to be effective. Use the guiding question that they came up with and stay focused on it. Another recommendation is the guiding question will focus on a specific aspect and something more general. For example, in the prose, the guiding question asked about descriptive language and atmosphere. Too many ignored atmosphere. So you want to make sure that you deal with both items in the question. So in that first question, descriptive language and atmosphere. Here's the next piece of guidance. Candidates need practice at writing introductions. Too many of these were very vague and general. Instead, candidates should be encouraged to offer an overall interpretation and a thesis, i.e., say what the text is about and how the guiding question is relevant to it. And I think this is the part where I've been telling you to make an argument. And instead of just repeating the guiding question in the form of a statement, you need to say something interesting about the meaning that's created using these particular literary aspects. In this case, descriptive language and atmosphere. All right, what else do they have to say? Focus on precise definitions of terminology. Give candidates lots of practice at analyzing and evaluating features. Candidates need to be reminded to answer the so what question for any feature which they identify. And so be really specific and precise when you use literary terms. They don't want you to use the terms incorrectly. Make sure you know what these terms are. And I'll give you an index in Schoology of literary terms so you can kind of remind yourself what each one is. But when you're talking about imagery, make sure you're talking about imagery and you're not just using that as a replacement for some other word. Typically what I find is students are too general. I think there might be a comment about that coming up here. Candidates need to be able to respond to any of the possible genres, subgenres listed in the subject guide, so expose them to as many examples of these as possible. Don't ignore the difficult bits. For example, metamorphic stone. Often texts will contain ambiguities, but it is much better to acknowledge these than to omit to mention them. Ambiguities, when something has more than one potential meaning. That is really the heart of analysis, is taking a stab at a suggested meaning by supporting it with a literal claim about the text itself. All right, so these are the suggestions, and you can see now as you read the sample essays how these candidates did well in these various areas. All right, go ahead and read that first sample and mark it according to the key that is in 6.2, step 2. Oh, wait, we have two more suggestions. Planning is essential, so practice planning responses to a variety of texts. And then, oh, this one, I love this one. Ruthless adherence to timing is essential. Guidance on how to divide up their time in the exam would really help here. And I will give you some specific guidance that I hope you will use on the actual exam date. All right, enjoy the first sample.